G'day battlers and welcome to the Delightful Days season, a brand new season of Pokemon Go and a brand new set of move updates ready to shift the meta and certainly change the Sunshine Cup meta as well. Sunshine Cup is going to be running for the first week of the Go Battle League alongside Great League, where you're probably going to be playing Great League, but where this is going to become much more important is the second time it comes around in mid-July. So if you are coming back to watch this video then, hi, hope the season's been treating you well, but if you are watching it now, let's keep going because what is the Sunshine Cup? Great League Edition, Great League Cup, only normal types, fire types, grass types, and ground types eligible, and ban on Charizard. No Charizard allowed, and as you can sort of already start to think in your mind, if there's fire types around, you're probably going to get Mud Boys with the ground types, and then grass types going to be good on that. So there's a little bit of a cycle there, but let's jump into the meta. But of course, if this sort of content is useful to you, please do go ahead and subscribe to support the channel and say that you do enjoy this sort of content because there are going to be plenty more meta simplified videos over the next 3 months for sure. But with that said, let's get into it. And of course, we have to get our thumbnail shot. So perfect. Now we've got 5 main groups on the graphic. We've got Cradily up in the very top. We've got to the right hand side, we have these grass types that aren't Cradily in Lurantis, Abomasnow, and Jumpluff. If we sort of keep the circle going around, we then have the Mud Boys at the bottom with the Quagsire and the Swampert. Diggersby also sort of, showing up, but it's a bit of a bridesmaid to be honest with you. And then keeping the circle going, we have the non-Mud Boy ground types with the Gligar and the Clodsire. And of course, we have the fire types in the middle with the Talonflame and the Magcargo. So how does this meta tend to work? And the first thing you have to point out is that Cradily is no longer running Bullet Seed. Acid has just been super buffed. It went from like 5 energy per acid to 8 energy. It is now a Shadow Claw clone. It is a really, really good move. And so Cradily is going to be sort of using that for some big, heavy damage. It is actually slightly slower, but ever so slightly than Bullet Seed in that it takes you 2 extra turns to get to your first move. But then after that is just identical to old Cradily. So, and it's a 2-turn move instead of a 3-turn move. So you have a little bit more flexibility. But Cradily, because it has that acid, is going to be doing quite well into the grass types. You do have to worry about, obviously ice damage coming in from Abomasnow and a superpower coming in from Lurantis, but in general, you do have a pretty decent time. And of course, you have that Rock Tomb damage that can really hit those fire types. The Incinerate uses for heavy damage, and because you are now a 2-turn move versus a 5-turn move, rather than Bullet Seed's 3-turn, you actually have way more flexibility in that matchup, and it is much easier to sort of push your way through that matchup, which is definitely quite nice for Cradily, but I guess of a consequence a little bit. Well, actually not even a consequence. You're going to get to the first move in 14 turns. It takes, Talonflame 15 turns to get to its first move. So you can actually sort of perfectly nestle your very first move into that first 3 Incinerates, which puts you in quite a nice spot as the Cradily. You are, of course, we don't have an arrow, but you're going to be beating the Mud Boys as well over in the bottom. And then, the ground types are sort of where things start to come undone. Clodsire, pretty decent into you. And Gligar, sort of also with a brand new buffed Fury Cutter back into the meta, also going to be quite good into the Cradily. If you look at the other grass types, obviously they're going to be weak to the Incinerate users in the middle, but their sort of main bread and butter is that they're going to be good into the Mud Boys, and then they're also actually going to have quite a little bit of coverage across the other Pokemon as well. For example, Abomasnow going to have quite good coverage into the Gligar because having that ice coverage can be quite handy for you, and of course back into the Cradily as well. Lurantis with the superpower going to be able to hit the Diggersbys that are rolling around for sure, and also Pokemon like the Cradily. Lurantis' main claim to fame a little bit is that it does take 9 turns to get to its first move. It also has the newly buffed Fury Cutter, and so it is in a quite decent spot there. Jumpluff, obviously going to be pretty good into the grass types, even without Energy Ball. Generally, they don't have a lot to hit you back with, but you do have to be a little bit wary. And to be honest with you, maybe you consider running Energy Ball in this particular meta, but I do think that Acrobatics is going to be quite handy. The Mud Boys are going to be good into the Incinerate users, and of course the other ground types, especially with access to water damage from the Swampert. I think that, Quagsire, you probably could run Aqua Tail in this particular meta, especially because there are going to be so many Talonflames, but maybe Mud Bomb Stone Edge is just fine for you, and that does the trick. Ground types, obviously, also going to do sort of similar things to usual. I do have a back and forth arrow between the ground types and the fire types, because Clodsire is going to be a lot better into the fires because of its access to Stone Edge, whereas, Gligar is going to be a little bit worse into those matchups, and is probably going to lose those ones out, especially against the Talonflame, where you don't really have any super effective damage to throw. But in a nutshell, that is sort of the core of the Sunshine Cup meta. Again, this is probably going to rapidly change as we figure out which Pokemon are good in the brand new meta. So let me know what Pokemon I've missed. I know there are, a few threats running around like Fire that threaten to be quite good, but I don't know, I didn't really think that it quite fit into this particular meta circle. I think that with access to Trailblaze and its sort of bulk, it's a very strong Pokemon, so you do have to watch out for it. But yeah, let me know any other Pokemon that you think are going to be really good in the Sunshine Cup, and let me know what your favorite pick is going to be in the Delightful Days season. With that said though, this is a pretty quick video, so thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one, and of course, thank you to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel as well. Till the next one, see you then, bye!